All right. Welcome to the last episode of our mini series on discipline for the Parenting Together podcast. Today, I just have Tony and David, and we're going to cover a pretty specific focus on this. The first two that we've done on this has kind of been across all ages and some of the heart and then some of the practicals. Today, we're going to be looking at what does it look like to discipline your teen? So what are some of the differences there? And so that's the first question I'm gonna throw at you guys. You know, we've talked about the heart, and obviously the heart's never going to go away. This idea of redemptive discipline is always a part of the process. But what changes in the rhythm of discipline as your kids become older, like high school level? What changes do you guys see there? Is they're a little bit more able to engage in the process themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that every parent should ask that as they work through this, because I don't know that there's any experts in this subject as such. I'm sure not. And it's like you raise children, you watch other people raise children, you kind of help each other. It's been helpful to be in relationships with other parents and discuss what's working and what hasn't worked with their kids in situations. I would start off with saying, don't isolate yourself when you're working through these things with your teenagers. Talk with older parents and those who have walked through this season of life well. Also know that the teens today face a culture that is totally different than any of the parents that are raising them face, basically, and for sure grandparents that are out there. It's like this is not that time frame. Right. Social media, postmodernism, a variety of things have opened up a whole Pandora's box of stuff to guard our children from and against, basically. I just saw something that came out and talked about it's because of the kind of month that we're in right now, where Sesame Street's pushing gender identity, you know? It's like, yeah, that would not have been a deal when I was raising my kids, thinking about things like that. So I would start off saying discipline is about discipleship. Okay, This is always about discipleship. It's not about punishment. You know, we're not trying to punish our kids. We're trying to we're into spiritual formation for our children. This is a unique season of life, though. It's like we should all know right away when our children hit teenage years, their bodies are changing. Hormones are coming and moving into a different phase of activity in their life, basically. They're struggling with identity, and we see that in society today, a lot of identity situations going on. This is a typical phase for teenagers. They go through all these things, and it's like, but that's not new. That's always been around. It's all these society things that have changed that are trying to take advantage, I think, in many ways, in terms of that our kids they're not on solid ground very well at this point. They're questioning a lot of things in their mind. And it's the season where things transition from when they were younger, you simply told them what to do and then needed to obey. Mm-hmm. And it's like, they didn't need to know why not to touch the stove. It's like, I said so. And it's like, but in this season of life, teenagers, they don't want to know just what to do. They want to know why. Why should I do that? Yeah. Why are you asking me to do that? And that's a very valid thing, because they're trying to learn to move into adulthood. And adults need to understand why we do the things we do, not just what it is, what's the right thing to do, check the right box kind of thing. So, David, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. I think one of the things you have to be very careful as a parent when you're working with teenagers is consistency was important when they were little, but consistency is even more important when they're becoming young adults, because they're looking at your life going, are you living what you're asking me? They have the ability to discern and to look at your life going, are you actually living what you're asking me to do? Yeah. That's why you can frustrate your children at those ages, those teenage years, if you are asking for one thing and living something else. That's where that frustration can come in. It's also a place where pulling them, and they look at your life and they go, okay, that's the fruit of what you're asking me to do. I see the good fruit. I see. Right. And that allows you to have those conversations with them. When it comes to working with teenagers, you have to remember that they do need the dialogue. The dialogue is very, very important because they are becoming adults, but they're also trying to understand the why of why does this matter? Where is this in the Bible? How does this fit when I feel differently than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I want something different than that, how did you get to that point? Don't just tell me to get to that point. How did you get to that point? Why did you get to that point? There were times I had to sit with my daughter for hours because we would work through things. Fashion in today's society is not easy.
Nope.
And you really have to help your daughter figure out what's okay and what's godly and what's not. But it takes a lot of dialogue to do that.
David mentioned, there's a couple things that you mentioned, David, that are real good. Just let me make a couple comments on them. One is that verse in Ephesians 6:4, where Paul says to fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. It's like, I think sometimes we're not clear. Well, what can I do that would do that? And you mentioned something. It's like when you're asking things of your children that you're not living yourself, you will provoke them.
Yeah.
It's not even a spoken issue. It's kind of like you're asking them to be good disciples, and that they look at you and it's like, but you're not a disciple. You know, your parents are. The parent is asking you need to obey and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but I heard you talking to one of the pastors or whatever else, and it's like they asked you to do something and you didn't do it. You know, it's those little things like that all of a sudden creep into our children. I mean, I've watched in other seasons of life in church situations where there were parents that got upset with pastors and leaders and stuff like that, and would not listen and walked out and poisoned their kids in that way about that issue. And it wasn't real long before they had a lot of issues with their children too, because it's like that level of I'm not submitted to any authority. You got to be careful of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the verses that talk about submitting to church leaders, it's the same words talking about children submitting to parents, or wives submitting to husbands. And so you need to be careful. We all have to be careful in terms of you can't have it one way and not have it another way.
Yeah.
We need to be consistent across these things and live an example. Our children should be able to expect. We're not perfect. I get that way. Therefore, we repent. And we walk through those kinds of things with our children, right, when we don't do it right. But living a life of example keeps from provoking our children to anger. Yeah. So that's a big issue. And the other thing I wanted to mention is just that not all teenagers are the same. This is an interesting time of life, basically. And we need to be sensitive to that. You have children that are very sensitive to things. You have children that are kind of hard-headed to things, if I put it that way. You have children that catch on easily when you're trying to walk them through situations, and other ones that are stubborn, and so the parent needs to know their child well.
Yes.
And so you can't just say one size fits all for every teenager where they're at. It's like a 13-year-old is really not struggling with the same things that the 18-year-old is struggling with. Things like that. And so, just some thoughts.
Yeah. So obviously conversation becomes a much bigger part of this, like you guys are saying. So what would you guys say to a parent who says, well, I try to have the conversation, but it just feels like all my kid wants to do is argue back all the time? What are some ways that you guys have gotten past the arguing stage and into the productive conversation that needs to happen?
Every parent should read the book Tactics.
Okay.
You start not by lecturing your kid or telling them what they need to do differently. Sometimes you need to start by asking questions. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Where are you coming from that? Those disarm.
Yeah.
But they also reveal.
Yeah.
If I can get my kid to talk to me about, okay, I get you feel this way. Help me understand. One, I'm showing that I care enough to pay attention to them rather than just say, okay, I'm tired of you. You're arguing. I'm taking a minute and actually listening to them, which a lot of kids are looking for. They're looking for you to listen. They want you to pay attention. They really want to do, a lot of them want to do what the right thing is. They just are caught in the moment, either in how they feel or what they think, but if you can ask questions and get them to talk, then you can point to, okay, do you see how this doesn't fit?
Yeah.
I get that you think that. Let's look at what the Word of God says. Because I started with questions rather than coming at them with, hey, that attitude, can you tell me why you have that attitude? I may still have to deal with the attitude, but I'm starting from a different place rather than coming at them hard.
Yeah.
I'm coming at them to show them that I want to understand, but I also want you to do what's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, along these lines, and we've learned this along the way. With some children, it's like children really crave to have time with their parents. I believe that they really
Yes.
they really want to.
Yeah.
And if you as a parent are not spending time with your child on a regular regular basis, doing things with them, asking them questions, getting with them at this age, this is really important. Way different than the younger ages and stuff like that. If you're not doing that, sometimes they will act up and be argumentative because it causes them to get more time with you.
Yeah.
Now, that is a
That's
weird
really
thought
true.
that would happen.
Sure.
But it's like they would rather have conflict that gives them time with you than not to have any time with you.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's like that's how much they crave interaction with their parents because they love them. That they was like, well, if I can't get their attention any other way, I'll just make waves, So a parent should consider that when they're going through these situations. Another thing, I mentioned this earlier also, but it's like when you're running across these kinds of argumentative situations, it's good to have some other parents
Yeah.
in their lives also, that they see this also and they kind of help you with, because your children may not respond the same way to them. And sometimes because of that, they can point out something about your child's attitude or whatever, that your child is like, oh my gosh, they just take it in and it's like, oh, I don't want to be that way or whatever else. Whereas you could have said that several times and they would just weren't getting it,
Right.
So.
I've had teachers, I just want to echo that point for just a minute. I've had teachers in the school at moments where my kids had heard me say it over and over and over again, and somehow they could walk in and say something about that attitude or that thing,
Right.
and my kid just straightened up.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had one of my sons come back and tell me, hey, you know what? I know you told me this 5 times. I didn't listen, but when such and such said it, I really got it.
Right.
Now I understand what you were saying.
Right.
It just,
I don't know.
There's always help.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, obviously I haven't lived this on the parenting side like you guys, but I've been a teenager. So if I was to be vulnerable for a minute just to attest to some of this, and my folks wouldn't mind this because they share this pretty openly, but when I hit my teen years, they were in a lot of struggles in their marriage and in their relationship with each other. And I think it's important to remember that teens don't consciously think, oh, I don't see you living this life, so I'm going to do that. Sometimes they don't even know that's why. And I look back at a lot of frustration I had in the discipline that my parents would try to give me, and the inconsistency in their life didn't just drive me away from them. It really drove me away from the Lord for a while.
Yes.
And in this, as my parents have grown, and we have a great relationship now. I talk to my parents multiple times every day. But one thing that I really appreciated as my dad began to grow in the Lord in that season was when he messed up and he knew he modeled something poorly, he didn't just open the door for me to talk to him, but he directly sent me to other people in our lives to talk to them. He didn't cover himself or shade himself or try to keep that behavior in the house.
Yeah.
And there was something in that even the parts that hurt me were really healed, and there was a lot of trust rebuilt there over the course of our relationship because he was willing to do that. And so I wonder too, sometimes when you have, to this question, when you have teens that just always seem to start in on the fight, if maybe it's subconsciously they're watching something in your life that isn't measuring up.
That's
And
good.
so I think just having that meant so much to me. The fact that my dad did that, even though it took time for us to recover
Yeah.
and heal and have the relationship we do now.
That's an important point. That's a really good point. It's something along a similar line, though. We don't see it all the time. We have run across it now and then. It's something we have to watch out for as parents, as teachers, as pastors, leaders. It's important to understand that some children have experienced some trauma in their life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think I have underestimated that in my earlier days, and having worked through now with different parents who had trauma in their early days and are dealing with issues in their life now because of it. I think, I have underestimated how much certain bad situations can happen in a child's life. It's not even necessarily their fault. It could be something that happened with their parents. It could be something, just a variety of things that cause trauma.
Yeah.
And the child doesn't know what to do with that or how to handle that. And most of the time they'll just press that down. But you know what? You can't press those things down inside and they not have a way to come back out.
Yeah.
And they will come out. But us as parents or other adults just see the behavior
Come
and
on.
not understand, no, this isn't just a bad reaction to that test. This is a bunch of pent up stuff from something broken on the inside
Sure.
that needs to be healed. And that's where I would put out that issue. It's like sometimes parents, you need help in healing your children if things like that. Because we also have adoptions, and we have people who come into the church who had terrible lifestyles when they started off, and they did
Right.
their children experienced some awful things. And it's like, yeah, these children will have some broken places, I can put it, some wounded places in their life that will cause them not to act in a normal way of how we would discipline or disciple a child.
Yeah.
It's like they'll have that knee-jerk reaction or that little twitch. It's like you say something sets it off, and you go, "Now I don't see how that phrase or that situation could produce that action, right?"
Right.
Yeah, well, because it didn't.
Yeah.
There's other stuff going on.
Yeah. I think if I'm just to echo on that, I feel a little prompted to say this as well, is just getting that battle back. And I won't go into detail. Maybe sometime we'll tell the full story. But like in our house, there was a lot of that, of healing that needed to happen, and getting back from that and working back from that. I look back now at how hard that must have been for my parents to be in a spot where they needed to make some lifestyle changes, did it, and then held on to even the discipline element in the middle of that. Because I could see how for them it would have been easy to just take the hand off and say this has been our fault, or we see the trauma, but to stay in the middle of that, even in the short term when it's hard, how much life that produces on the backside. Because when you look at studies, right, children of trauma need more structure,
Right.
but they need the right kind of structure.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, that would be my encouragement if you're in a household where you're experiencing these things, is just don't lose hope. Like there's not a point where you lose that. Like I think the Lord's a redeemer, even in the area of disciplining your kids. Like there can be redemption in a healthy way that works. I love my father for the way that he disciplined me when most of my life I hated him for it. So that would be one of my big encouragements there.
That's good. Well, you know what? And I wouldn't be against Christian counseling for some children.
Sure, yeah.
It's depending on how traumatic the experience was and whatever else is like. Sometimes Christian professionals, can really help in that healing process and get that started.
Yeah.
I think I would just throw out one thing in the midst of this, whether it's somebody who's been through trauma or you're just working with an average teenager. One of the things parents have to be careful of is that they don't react to their teenagers. They respond.
That's good.
Sometimes a teenager can push your buttons as a parent and you react.
Right.
Rather than take a moment to find where God is and to have the Holy Spirit before you open your mouth and before you start working with them. And those reactions can then cause them to put walls up and to pull back and to argue more because you're reacting to them rather than responding to them from a place of, this is what's going on. This is what the Lord's asked after. This is how I need to come. Instead, my pride got wounded in the moment because my child's arguing with me. And I want to lash back out at them and make them stop because they should be respecting me. They shouldn't be arguing with me. They shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And we react instead of respond.
Yeah, that reminds me of the importance of something you said in the original episode of this series too, was that there really is no room for vengeance in the discipline process. And that is that when teenagers can probably say things that are a lot wittier than, your toddler. And, this is specifically for our house. I'll say we are a largely prophetic house. We have a prophetic atmosphere. Those gifts are without repentance. I genuinely believe there are some kids that are just discerning enough to pick up on knowing I'm going to say this because I know how it's going to hit you. And man, that hurts, but we got to watch it. So the next question here maybe moves a little bit into method. So with teenagers, specifically high schoolers, you might have them in specific short-term life situations. One of their only opportunities to play sports, maybe a part-time job, maybe doing drama or having an internship, whatever thing you would plug in, right, for short-term opportunities that high schoolers have. How do you balance giving them those opportunities, letting them grow? And is it unwise to use those in the discipline process, i.e., restricting, removing? What do you balance in that? What goes into you guys' thought process?
I'll start it off then. Discipline's, I think, is better handled with teenagers by taking away privileges and restricting activities than it is by corporal punishment or spanking. I'm not saying it's off the table completely, but in general, my experience is that it doesn't have the same effect at that point.
Sure.
They would almost sometimes, I've had a child, not revealing who, is like, say, he's like, no, just spank me. Don't take that away. Don't, you know, and it's like, so, you got the right thing. You chose the right situation at that point.
I was that child.
And so, sometimes people are like, well, yeah, they need to be in the situations, whatever. It's like, yeah, but if they have a bad attitude, we were just talking about this before, a bad attitude, why take their bad attitude and sew it into that sports situation that they're going into, kind of stuff like that? Because they'll only get reinforcement for their bad attitude, because most sports teams have enough pagans involved with that. The old bad company corrupts good morals. It's like, you want them to be kind of a light in that situation, not to be the one who gets influenced by what's going on there. So taking away things that they value or like to do or whatever else. Well, also it could be, it's like, well, you just earned the privilege of taking the garbage out, not for the week, but for the month. It can be certain kinds of things that were chores around the house or things that we do and things in general where they did some things, and now they get to do a lot more of those things, or a lot more for longer periods of time. And so most of them don't like to do dishes that much or whatever else. They're just things that you say, this is better than a spanking, and it has, because every time you're up there washing those dishes, you're thinking about, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. It has a long-term effect because you're paying for it over and over and over, and so you're trying to change, or I want to say, this spiritual formation, this formation going on here. And sometimes formation ducks better when the consequences are systemic for a period of time.
Yeah.
So they can think about it every time they get out there mowing the grass or whatever it is that they don't like to do, as opposed to it was a one and done,
right?
Kind of issue. So those are things to think about, and I think some of that comes to age, maturity level too, something to keep in mind along the way. So, David,
I think I agree with all of that. I think in the midst of that, you also have to learn to lean on the Holy Spirit.
That's good,
because you don't do it flippantly. And you don't do it from a place of reaction. Oh, you did this, so now I'm going to take this away from you. That comes out of anger, not out of, I've thought about the consequence that needs to come. Yeah. Sometimes you hear parents, okay, you didn't do your homework, so now you don't get to do that. It's not a thought out thing. It's just I'm reacting and I'm going to punish this. If you take something away from your kids or you increase it, you want to think through the purpose of, what am I trying to teach my child in the midst of this? So if I take a sports away from them for a season because they won't clean their room and they won't do their chores and they're arguing with their mom, what am I going to replace that with to help my child learn what God's asking him to learn in the midst of that? Taking out the trash, might learn I need to take the trash out more because I'm going to learn to have a good attitude about taking out the trash and not argue with mom when she says take out the trash. But it may mean that you have to invest some time, not just take something away, so that heart changes in your child.
Yeah.
If they just did something and you're pretty upset by it, I think a good rule of thumb is you should just send them to the room so they can think about it. And you should take your time and pray about what would be, Lord, help me to understand what would be the appropriate response in what I'm asking them to do that will help them change their heart in this situation. And you don't have to rush that. Matter of fact, sometimes when they're sitting in there thinking about something's kind of drop on them, it has a increased effect.
Oh, it does.
When you come in there.
It does.
I want to ask just a follow-up on this, because obviously as a parent, I'm experiencing this in small doses with my toddlers. So I can imagine how much harder it is with teens. There's like the emotional element for you as a parent of, oh man, I really don't want to see my kid miss out on this opportunity. If you're feeling guilty about a discipline, does that necessarily make it wrong? Or if you know you're making the right decision, you still have those emotions, what are some of the ways you would encourage parents in the middle of that?
First of all, no, it's not wrong. And yes, you're probably going to feel that. No parent wants to take something fun away from their kids.
Right.
It isn't about whether or not I feel good about it. It's what is it I need to do to train the heart of my child. That's crucial above how I feel in the moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's terrible. My son can't go play basketball today and he's got a great game, but we've had a week long of rebellious attitude.
Right.
I have to do what's better for my child for his eternity than I do for the moment of a game.
Yeah.
Or for a drama class, or you can put anything in there you want, video games. I mean, there was a season that in my house, one of my sons lost the ability to play video games because what I saw happening in him was such a rebellious attitude. But the interesting thing is the video games, what we saw was the video games actually fed that because it became something he wanted so badly that if you asked him to get off, he would give you attitude. If you asked him to do his chores, he gave attitude. When that was gone for a season and we had time to talk and work, that wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
That shifted, but it was uncomfortable.
Right.
It was uncomfortable for me as a parent to take that away. Well, everybody else gets to do this. Everybody else gets to. I mean, I had to listen to that day after day for the first several days. In my heart, I'm like, I just want to. It would be so much easier if I just let him. You can't make those choices. You have to choose what God's asking you to do as a parent. That's why you have to lean in and have the Holy Spirit and be walking deeply with God, is so you know what he's asking you to do with your child, because each child really is unique. What I do with one may not work with another, and I may have to do something totally different, but I'll only know that by spending time with my child and having that relationship with my child and being able to walk with the Holy Spirit to do that.
I've heard stories of Christian coaches who were working with, Christian players where a player had a really bad attitude and the coach just benched him for the game. It's like, you're out. You're not going to sit. You're sitting.
Right.
And they really needed him, and he may even go on to lose the game because of the situation. But the coach realized there's something more important here than the game.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's like,
exactly right.
There's an attitude here that needs to be fixed. And it's like, with that attitude, you shouldn't be out there playing the game anyway, kind of thing. And so it's kind of like, so you're out the game or whatever it might be. And I think, well, if coaches can do that, parents should realize, whatever I need to withdraw or take away or whatever else, maybe that team was depending on my son or whatever to be out there for that, or the position they play. And it's like, well, there's just consequences. And you know what? And sometimes that drives the idea of the point even deeper, the consequences of, so because of your attitude, you didn't play, because you didn't play, that your team lost. And it's like,
right.
It's like, so let's talk about this attitude. How do we fix it so this doesn't happen anymore, kind of thing, right?
My not so comforting chime in, because I think the fear probably for any parent is like, well, is this going to cause my child to hate me? Is this going to, are they going to regret not having that one time I took that away from them the rest of their life? I guess my answer as, again, a teenager who's dealt with these would be maybe short term. Yeah. I remember, like you're saying, you talk about parenting together. I loved basketball. I loved being on our team here. I still got in a lot of trouble in school. And I remember the principal at the time had an idea of how to discipline me. Talked to my dad about it. My dad said, well, no, let's not do that. Let's take him off the basketball team. And because of that conversation, parenting together, it hurt. And I did not like my father for that for a while. But, we had a coach at the time, and I started to pick up on the life lessons of, hey, you didn't just hurt yourself. You just hurt all your teammates. There's lessons to be learned in those things. Yeah. And I definitely hated it in the moment, but it produces the peaceful fruit of righteousness in the end, right?
Yes.
That's what we're after.
That's that parenting together too.
Yeah. Together. Do you guys want to add, just as we're kind of wrapping up this series on discipline, are there any kind of final comments you would just want to leave parents with related to teens, related to discipline as a whole?
I think the final thing I would say is the relationships and the time that you spend with your teen right now are actually not just for this season. They build the bridge for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that they come back, and because in this season you're moving away from positional authority to influential. As they're becoming 18, as they're growing, you're going to lose that positional authority when they start getting ready to move out of your house and all of that. You want that influential authority to be so strong because you've built that relationship with them and spent that time with them in these teen years, that they continue to come back to you and come back to you and come back to you. And I think sometimes even when we're doing discipline, even with our teenagers, we can forget how long haul we need it to be and why it needs the time it needs and why your teenagers are going to want more time with you. They're going to want time with you when it's uncomfortable to you, because they're probably going to want it late at night when you want to go to bed after a long day of work. They're going to come home and they're going to want to start talking at 10 and you want to go to bed at 10. There is a cost and a sacrifice you have to give as a parent to build that so that your children respect even the discipline that you give them.
Yeah.
That's good. A couple of things. One is, this is maybe backing up just a hair, but teens need to be exposed to the culture around them. We know that as they're getting older, because they're going to have to learn. They're going to be an adult at some point and making decisions and things like that. And it needs to be in planned, thought out ways by parents. How much? Not every child should be exposed to certain things at certain time frames. It depends on your child's sensitivity, their maturity levels, a variety of things. It's like I would encourage parents, please don't make the mistake I need to push my child out into this situation because they need to experience real life. I've heard that before, and it's like, you know what? Don't do that. That can be such a bad situation. If your child's having a hard time getting along with Christian peers in a Christian school, and you stick them with non-Christian kids out in a situation, it's just going to feed the bad attitudes that they have already, kind of, that you're trying to help them get through. Basically, they're not ready for that yet, so you have to be sensitive to that. And I would encourage people, it's like, talk to other people about your children before you start doing that. Does their teacher, does their principal, do good friends of ours, do you think my child's ready to maybe be in a sports team at the Y or something like that around nine? It's like, or do you see things that would be a problem with that? In other words, get input from other people on this situation. In the end, we're after spiritual formation. It's discipleship. Discipline's about discipleship. It's an aspect of that whole issue. The key, as we know, is shepherding their hearts. We're after the heart in this whole process. And you want to keep the communication lines open. And that means it's going to take a lot of time. I found that I've spent a lot more time talking to my kids when they hit teenage years on up than I had ever. It's like early on, you do a lot of interacting with them, but they're not really asking the why questions, so much. And so as they get older, and they need a lot of talk time. And it's like, I found it to be even more as they get, at 13, one level, but totally different. At 17 and 18, they needed even more talk time.
Sure.
When they went off to college, they needed more talk time. And so it's like, make sure those communication lines are open, and that, if you do that, your kids are always your kids. You're always their parent. And it's like, there should always be a great relationship there where they come back and they want your advice and your wisdom about things. They respect you. And you're building all that in these years.
Yeah.
This process is meant to build that in these years. So make sure keep the lines open. Make sure they can talk to you about anything. And I mean anything.
Anything.
Yep.
So the two things I'll leave us with then is, earlier you referenced this book, David Tactics. It's by Gregory Kukul, I believe is how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. But we have copies available in our parenting center. And if we don't, we will before this is released this afternoon. Yep. So that could be a book to pick up. And then one more thing that you guys have kind of started to reference this, and this was something Ruth, I think, is working on putting together, is we'll probably release an additional bonus episode at some point about how to parent your adult children. And so obviously we talked through the teen years, and now we're starting to talk a little bit about, positional versus influential authority. So that's another thing that could be coming your way maybe here in the next few weeks if you're headed towards that stage. So, all right. Thank you guys for your time. And be sure to check out our next mini series, also being released today on Life Church School.